friend, welcome back to Toyota Maintenance YouTube channel. This truck is 2001 Toyota Tacoma 4-wheel drive and it came today for the rear axle oil seal replacement. If you want to see me how I deal with this repair, stay with me in this video. So I started with putting truck safely on that lift, removing that wheel, and I will continue with removing this drum. If it doesn't want to go by the hand, I will help myself with these two screws, right? And carefully paying attention to the detail. It will help me even by hand, right? This one is loose, I had it off last weekend. But carefully, gradually, you remove that whole drum. It will slip nicely off. Oh, you see? This one was easy. This one is again full of oil, so there will be a lot of cleaning. I will continue with disconnecting that parking brake cable, which is right here. I can remove this little cotter pin, securing pin by the hand. You don't need even pliers for it. You can push out that pin. If not, I will use screwdriver, carefully tap on it, and it's out and the cable is separated. My next step is to separate the brake line from the back. Hopefully you can see it. It's right here, right? I cannot show it to you because there's no space for a camera, but this is what I will remove from this assembly, disconnect it and cap it. For brake lines, you always want to use these special wrenches, right? Because you want to prevent stripping it. And this is 10 mm on this Toyota. So I come in the back, right? I have this little cap ready to cap that brake line to minimize the brake fluid leakage. I have a catching pan on the floor, right, for those few drips, so I don't have mess all over. And I will carefully disconnect this brake line. If it doesn't go easily or you feel even a little bit resistance, I will highly recommend you to use a lot of lube. But this is a relatively simple job and you don't want to become a nightmare, right? You will strip something and you might have a lot of problems later. So we want to always avoid that and do it nice and smooth and smart. I kept that brake line and I will continue with removing 4 14 mm nuts. I put a socket on one of them so you can see where it is located. Here are the bottom ones. Yep. And one more right here. Tacoma is equipped with the speed sensor for ABS. The factory manual recommends to remove it also, preventing its damage, but this one doesn't. So believe or not, now I'm able, carefully, paying attention, grab the whole thing, the whole assembly, right, and start pulling that axle out. I just put on these gloves to have a easier work. And look at that. Once again, carefully, right? Now, you might expect the oil coming out of it, but this truck already lost so much, it's not coming out, right? There's no problem. And I want to show you those parts in detail before any cleaning. So you see that gold color, that's a metal and it's a part of that here a rubber seal which basically failed and is leaking that oil. Look at all this junk, right? So that will be all clean, but first we will be removing this seal. And let's look at the axle itself. It's right here, right? So this is the top, and again the detail of this area, right? That seal is driving on this shaft, that's where it seals, but it failed. Also, I want to mention I will be installing dust o-ring. Note that it's completely missing. It goes around here and it's completely missing. I don't know why. And here are the new parts, what I was talking about, right? Always check with the dealer for a correct fitment, right? And this is the o-ring for the dust protection. There are all kinds of pullers, the seal pullers, right? Seal removers in this world. It can be this one, it can be sliding hammers, pullers, and so on. But all of them will have one thing in common. You have to be extremely careful where you are popping this out, because you don't want to scratch any surfaces where it will be seated, the new one in the future. But look, this one is great design from KD Tools. It's a KD 3245. It has two different sides, but this one seems to be better for me. So look at it. Just place it on. As I said, carefully, I will hit it right here. And it's in that catching pan which was ready, right? It was wonderful, and I know 100% I didn't damage anything. I continue with perfectly cleaning this area with a new rags, right? Also this area for the dust o-ring, right? So now it really pays off to take time and do perfect cleaning. Here you can see in detail that brand new part which came out of that bag, right? And basically the same way it was installed, it will go back with that gold area facing out. Now comes the moment of the through, right? That's the difficult part. How you start it in nicely and how you correctly install it without damaging that rubber, right? And going perfectly equally straight. When I did the last video for you, I actually used this old used engine oil filter. There is a nice rubber gasket still. It perfectly matches that gold area, right? So I preset this there. I'm observing that none of the side is deeper than the other ones. And I will grab the rubber mallet, and I have to be really careful and observe this and start pressing that seal housing in, right? Again, come, stop, look, right? It's all equal, excellent. Let's go, get going. And I will say it's easier than it looks maybe in the video, right? You just keep following it and you can see it's nicely coming in. Now, there was some comment from someone saying, I hate to tell you, bro, but this will not work. This was redesigned, the whole thing, and you are not putting it far enough inside, and that will fail really quickly. Well, I appreciate that people share their knowledge, but I had that Forerunner here yesterday, actually, for the oil change, and I did that repair like half a year ago. And it's perfectly done, it's perfectly holding, and there are no problems. So I don't know what his friend meant with that, but this is how it can be done. Look at that. New seal is inside, right? Beautifully installed, and we can keep going. You never know what a old used oil filter can be good for, right? And before putting the axle shaft in, of course, I will very slightly lubricate this O-ring. All right, I said O-ring because I already thinking about that dust seal O-ring, right, which prevents dust entering this area, and that's where it belongs. Either way, that seal from Toyota was like $7, and that O-ring shockingly was like $5. That I couldn't really understand why. And obviously now I need to turn my attention to this, right? This needs to be perfectly clean before I will try to install it back. And having it perfectly clean, now I will be even more carefully installing the shaft back, right? So definitely pay attention, right, how this whole assembly was oriented, and careful, gently going inside. Yeah, just careful wiggle it, right? It will always go. Observe the orientation of all those components, and if everything's fine, it should let you to install it. Everything seems to be perfectly matching, which is great news, right? I didn't forget that dust rubber O-ring, so that's great news too. And I can start installing it back, gradually tightening those 14 millimeters nuts. Let's put a light here. Oh, way better. I tried to look up in my sources the torque for these 4 nuts, but I didn't find it. If you know this number, please share it in the comments under this video. But I'm sure you still remember how much torque I had to use to remove them, right? It was a lot of power, so definitely they need to be tight. While tightening those bolts, of course I'm checking that everything is moving smoothly, right? And everything is fine. The nuts are correctly installed, right? I nicely torque them tight. So I will start reinstalling this brake line. Now, I still have to deal with that parking brake assembly right here, right? So that's the next thing which needs to be done. And I need to clean both sides, right? This is soaked with the oil, so this needs to be perfectly clean. I will use brake cleaner, but also don't forget to clean the back side, because you want to have it perfectly dry and clean to be able to observe, right, possible leaks. And some will say these brake shoes, if they were too contaminated, should be replaced, right? I'm sure some shops will insist on that as a part of this job. That's up to discussion, of course. What I will be doing next will be getting air out of that brake line, right? I'm alone here, so I will use the vacuum. I will check brake reservoir in the engine bay, make sure there's enough fluid, and I will pull that fluid here through that valve until I don't have any air present in this, right? These brake shoes needs to dry before I will be putting that drum back. You saw how the drum is contaminated by oil. That all, of course, needs to be cleaned. Now, also don't forget that this entire assembly lost a lot of oil. We don't know how much. This owner opted only for topping it off instead of replacing all that fluid. That's his decision. I don't care. Again, normally some shop might insist and say, no, we are not putting just a little bit. We will just drain it completely and put a new fluid in it. But you cannot argue with the owner of the truck, right? So again, you can see that everything is perfectly running and turning. I can see the next wheel. There's no odd noises or anything, right? So I'm basically ready to clean the drum, put everything back, and do that brake fluid and the top, the rear diff. And before I will finish and return it to the owner, I will make sure that vent valve, which is right here, right? It's all loose, nicely spinning. Do you see it? Because this one was actually plugged. I hope you find this video inspiring and maybe helpful. I don't know if you will try to do it by yourself, right? It's up to you. Make sure you are subscribed because I will have way more videos about Toyotas exclusively coming for you out of this shop. Thanks for watching and have a great day, my friend.